3.2 is titled Comparing the Growth of Functions, and we are going to answer the question, which function always wins? So question 92 is titled A Race to Infinity. The functions below are in a race to determine which function will move towards infinity the fastest as x becomes larger. Your team's task is to determine the order of the finish. Which function do you predict will be the winner of the race? Okay. So there are 6 functions listed here. A of x is 100 times x. B of x is 1.05 x to the second. C of x is 1.1 to the power of x. Part D, or D of x, is 10x plus 1,000. E of x is x squared plus 1,001. And F of x is 2 to the power of x minus 1,000. So for part A, the first thing they want us to do is to calculate the value of each function when x is 1. That means we're going to plug in the number 1 into each of these 6 functions and see what answer we get. Okay? Then we're going to make a list and order the functions and, what does that word say? And their values from largest to smallest. Okay? So for function A, we plug in a 1, we multiply 1 times 100, we just get 100. Pretty much stays where it's at. B, we plug in a 1, we square it, multiply it by 1.05, we get 1.05. For C, we plug in a 1, anything to the first power is itself, we end up with 1.1. For D, we plug in a 1, 10 times 1 is 10, plus 1,000 is 1,010. For E, we plug in a 1, 1 squared is 1, plus 1,001 is 1,002. And for F, we plug in a 1, 2 to the first power is 2, minus 1,000 is negative 998. Okay? Then they want us to list them in order from greatest or largest to smallest. All right. So D, which was 1,010, is our largest. Then E was 1,002. A is 100. C is 1.1. B is 1.05. And F is negative 998. Okay? Everybody with me so far? All right. Any questions on part A? Okay. Now for part B, they're going to have us plug in 10. So it says calculate the value of each function when x equals 10. Make a list and order their functions and their values from largest to smallest. So again, this time we're plugging in 10. So 100 times 10 is 1,000. Plug in 10 here. 10 squared is 100. So 1.05 times 100 is 105. Plug in a 10 here. 1.1 to the 10th power is 2.59. For D, we plug in 10, we get 1,100. For E, we plug in 10, we get 1,101. And for F, we plug in 10, and we get to 24. The order slightly changes, okay? Remember, D was in the largest, now it's the second largest, and E moves up. So now E is the largest at 1,101. D is the second largest at 1,100. A is the next largest at 1,000. B is the next largest at 105. And what was that, B? F is at 24. It came out of the negative. So it jumped from last place to second to last. And then C is 2.59. Okay? Any questions on part B? All right, part C. Now they want us to plug in 100. So calculate the value of each function when x equals 100. That means we're going to plug in the 100, and again, make a list from largest to smallest. So for A, we plug in 100, we get 10,000. B, we plug in 100, we get 10,500. C, we plug in 100, we get 13,781. D, we plug in 100, we get to 2,000. E, we plug in 100, we get 11,001. And for F, we plug in 100, and we get a number that's so large in our calculator that we have to write it as a power of 10. So it's 1.27 times 10 to the 30th power, because the calculator screen will not hold, that small calculator screen will not hold this number because it's so large. Okay? So you'll notice that F just went from last place, started moving up slowly, and now it's the largest, followed by C, which was 13,781, followed by E, followed by B, followed by A, followed by D. Okay? So what happened here? Question D says, how can you determine the winner of the race to infinity, and what will be the final order of the finish? F of x all of a sudden started growing really quickly. Okay, it moved from last place to first place, from plugging in 1 to plugging in 100, and the final order is going to be even slightly different than this, slightly different than part C. E starts growing faster, A slows down a little bit. So part E asks what happens there. It says, at what value of x will the order of finish no longer change? That is, when will you be sure that no function will pass any other function in the race to infinity? Which functions change position in the race at this point? Okay, the B of x is going to pass the E of x at roughly 141, and then that's where it will continue to, they'll all still keep increasing, but they won't pass each other anymore. All right, any questions on part E? Anybody still writing? Okay, we'll give you guys the next page. You're going to work on in your teams of 4. It is titled Race Report. With your team, you're going to write a race report. Describe how each type of function in problem 92 grows, considering if it's linear, so underline the word linear, or if it's a quadratic, or if it's exponential, which type of function will win a race to infinity, and which type of function will come in last. If you have more than one of the same type of function, how can you determine the winner? Okay, so it's the same functions that we saw on the previous page. With your team, you're going to come up with 5 sentences explaining, mostly talking about which one's linear, which one's quadratic, what are the exponential functions, and how is that going to make them grow slower or faster, and what's going to end up winning.